Good morning, everyone. Beautiful morning this morning. So I originally started this channel because I wanted to let people who don't farm sort of have a look at what goes into it, but I also wanted to sort of have a channel that could have information for people who are starting to farm or hobby farming or basically anyone for information. So that's what this video is for, is to share some information that I learned the hard way this year. The first one is feeding corn stalks. I had never fed corn stalks before, and I tried it this year. We had a drought down here in Texas, and so hay was a little not so plentiful. And so I wanted to try corn stalks, and so this is what it looks like. The cows actually really eat it very well, surprisingly. I was really surprised how well they ate it. But if you are feeding corn stalks to your cows, I learned that you want to be very careful about feeding it to your young calves. I actually had one die. I didn't know they would. But basically what happens is if your calves are 5 or 6 months younger than 5 or 6 months, their digestive system is not developed well enough to handle that course of a feed. And so normally it's still okay if they're still with their cow, but if you get a really greedy calf, they can actually eat so much of it that they get an impaction. And based on just what happened to me, they can die from it. And I talked to ranchers that have been doing it a lot longer than myself, and they had never heard of it. But I talked to an older vet that agreed that that is likely what had happened. Basically, I had this heifer that I thought she looked like she had bloat, but she was wild enough I couldn't catch her right away. And by the time I caught her later the same evening that I saw her. Caught her, but it was too late to get her to the vet, so I was planning to take her to the vet the first thing the next morning, and she was still plenty lively that evening, but she had died by the next morning. And when I cut her open, yeah, she was just completely packed full of corn stalks. And so just a warning, if you're feeding corn stalks and you have small calves, say 5 months and younger, in the same pasture where you're feeding those corn stalks, be a little careful about that. If you have a greedy calf, they can eat too much and they can actually die from it. The other thing that I've learned the hard way this year is that I learned about oak poisoning. Again, something that I did not realize was a thing. I didn't know that cows would even eat acorns, and I didn't know that they were toxic. But we had a bumper crop of acorns this year, and I had a pasture out back here that has numerous oaks. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them right along the fence here. And I noticed my heifers were starting to look, I had 2 of them back here in this little pasture. I noticed they were starting to look a little rough, and I couldn't figure out why, until one day I was working here at home, and I saw they were out back here eating acorns. And so I immediately tried to get them away from there and get them out, on a pasture that had less acorns. And the one heifer, it seems to have worked. The one heifer seems to be fine. The other one, not so much. And if you read about it online, it'll say, well, if they have enough food, enough high protein food, or they won't eat it unless they really need to. That is not true in my case. As you can see, the pasture's all green. They've got a hay bale right there. I was feeding them protein cubes. They were still eating acorns. So it's not entirely true that they won't eat it unless they have to. And according to what I was able to find, basically once they eat too many and get oak poisoning, there's no treatment. And even in the event that they do recover, they'll never quite be the same again. And so yeah, I have this heifer here. As you can see, she didn't die, but I just noticed earlier this week she was starting to get a little bit slow. Wasn't coming up to feed that great. And I think by yesterday, this is a heifer I normally can't get close enough to touch. By yesterday, if she was laying down, I would have to get up and actually make her, make her stand up. She would not get up just from me walking around. And so, according to what I understand, the way oak poisoning works, it's actually so high in acid that it will somewhat eat their stomach. Like the acid will actually burn their stomach. They can get mouth ulcers. My heifer here won't eat, so I'm guessing probably she does have mouth ulcers. But then it will also cause kidney failure. And as I said, there's really no treatment at this point. I mean, if I would have known that oak poisoning was a thing, I mean, obviously fencing them away from it would be best, but according to what I've read, other options are, trying to feed a super high protein feed. I guess, I'm not sure what that helps. I guess maybe move it through their system faster. Another option is if you can somehow trick them into eating hydrated lime. They obviously don't want to do that, but I've read that if you can mix it with molasses or something, that can help, potentially. Or pumping their stomach can help too, but that's all if you catch it soon enough. In my situation where she's already got these symptoms, according to what I've been able to find, there is nothing that you can do. And so, yeah, even if she doesn't die, she'll never be the same again. And so, yeah, so as I said, I created this channel to basically help people learn about farming and ranching, and also that don't live on a farm or ranch, and also to help people who are trying to start, if you're starting to raise cattle or something like that, so that you can learn some of these things without actually having to experience them yourself. So yeah, if you're feeding cornstalks, be careful when you're feeding them to little calves. If you have oak trees in your pasture, don't let the cows eat those acorns. If they eat 1 or 2 or 3, they're fine, and some cows might be fine across the board, but it can and will kill them if they eat too many of them. So just be careful.